Hi, I'm Swati and I will be conducting your speaking test today. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Navya Jain and I'm from Delhi.
Okay, what should I call you?
You can call me Navya.
All right, Navya. So we'll start with speaking part 1. I will be asking you a series of questions. Let's talk about films. Do you enjoy watching films?
Even though I have a proclivity for TV shows, I am very fond of watching movies. Just yesterday, I went out with my friends to watch Batman in theaters.
Okay. What kind of films do you like the most?
Honestly, my favorite genre would be action. I am a huge fan of superhero movies, and my favorite films would definitely be those which have, action sequences and a fantasy world, something of that sort. That would definitely top my list.
Did you watch much TV as a child?
I am not very proud to say this, but I was one of those kids who would not eat a single bite of their food until and unless they are watching something on the television. So, of course, I used to binge watch, as we say it nowadays, I used to binge watch a lot of cartoons. I would come back home from school, I would keep my bag in my room, and the first thing that I would do would be to turn on the television. So, I loved watching a lot of TV as a kid.
Are foreign language films popular in your country?
With the advent of all the OTT platforms like Netflix or Amazon Prime, we've been having access to a lot of content from all around the globe. If we were to talk about 10 years ago, a show in Spanish, we would have not known the names of shows in, say, Spanish, but now we do, and they are actually one of the most popular shows in India. So I think, yes, we have access to a lot of content from around the world.
Okay, we'll now move on to the topic of greeting people. How would you greet someone who is visiting your house?
At least in my household, when someone comes over, we join both our hands and we say namaste, which is a Hindi word. Sometimes we even, sometimes even a hello suffices. So yeah, we would definitely stick to the traditional joining our hands and greeting them with a namaste.
Would you greet an old friend and a stranger in the same way?
I just ran into one of my closest friends. We were friends in, I think, my second grade, and we met after around 10 years. And the first thing we did was our stupid secret handshake that we used to do when we were 7 years old. So I think I can say it on a good authority that I won't be greeting a stranger and an old friend in the same way.
All right. How do you meet new people?
Because of the pandemic, the only way for at least our generation to socialize has become through online spaces such as Zoom meetings or Google Meets. We meet new people in online communities or by social media, and we meet people in a virtual meet zone, not a physical one.
All right. Do you think first impressions are important?
Honestly, I think whenever we meet a person, we create a construct of them in our mind, and all our actions, especially towards them, gets dictated by that construct. And a major part of that image that we form of a person is because of their first impression on us. And I think this is usually the case with everyone, at least as far as I've noticed. This is how people react and this is how people behave around others. In my opinion, yes, first impressions are very important. They can leave a lasting effect and they can dictate the way, how a person treats you, honestly.
I'd like to move on now. I'm going to give you a topic to talk about. You will be able to make notes. You will have 1 minute for that, and you will need to speak for 2 minutes. I'd like you to talk about a holiday that you recently had. I will share a cue card with you and you can start making notes. I'll let you know when it is time for you to begin speaking. You may start making notes.
All right.
Yes, Navya, your time is up. You may start speaking.
In 2020, my nation went in a nationwide lockdown. And since then, me and my family have been beating around the bush with the idea of going on a vacation. But finally, after requesting my parents for 2 years, they took me to a trip to Jim Corbett. I went there with my mom, dad, my sister, sister's husband, and their little son. It was a very fun trip, honestly. We stayed in a beautiful resort and we even saw peacocks dancing in the morning when we looked outside our windows. We felt very close to nature because of all the greenery that was around us. We would see beautiful flowers blooming and the weather was lovely there. I so on the We had a 3-day long trip. Well, on the first day, we were all very lazy and we decided that it would be the best if we would just order food via room service. And we all just played with my sister's 2-year-old son that day. But on the second day, we had the opportunity to go on a safari. The weather was lovely. Thankfully, it wasn't very hot that day because we've heard from locals around there that usually in hot weathers, animals tend to stay inside their homes or maybe hidden under trees. But the weather was very pleasant and we went out in this huge jeep and we saw a lot of animals. Unfortunately, we couldn't see a tiger there, but it was a very fulfilling trip because I enjoyed spending time with my sister's son. Furthermore, the weather and the overall ambience of that place was very refreshing. Anyone feels great when they are close to nature, and it also makes you feel very comfortable and very honestly, it makes you feel really nice. There's like you feel as if you have accomplished everything. You forget about all your worries and all you really care about is what you are experiencing in that moment. That is the kind of enormous impact living in nature can have on you. It was an amazing experience. I even became friends with a cat there, honestly. She even came to say goodbye to me, I think, when we were leaving, because she wouldn't leave. She would just come and sit next to our car when we were about to leave. So
Okay.
I think it was a
Yes,
really
Navya,
amazing.
you have spoken for 2 minutes. Let's move on to the next set of questions. I'd like to talk more about holidays and traveling. If you had the chance to travel anywhere, where would you go?
I have heard lovely things about Italy, and that would definitely be my dream destination. Um, Moreover, I'm a huge fan of Italian food, and I would genuinely want to taste some real Italian food, not the kind of, the Indian version that we cook here in our homes. I would want to explore those beautiful streets and have that delicious food that I've heard so much about, and I enjoy it myself as well.
Why do you think some people like to travel alone?
I believe I am one of those some people who would rather be a solo traveler than to travel in groups, because I love my personal space. Moreover, when we are out there, when we are out exploring new places, we usually do activities that take up a lot of our energy. We go out to monuments and we walk a lot. We go to restaurants to eat. We probably go to parties to dance. And then when we come back, we would rather have a room all to ourselves where we could just lie down and relax. I think it becomes very difficult, at least for me, to share my space when I am that tired. So
Do
I
you
would
think
definitely prefer to travel alone. And I think I understand why some people would want to do that as well.
Okay. Do you think travel has changed much over the last few decades?
If we were to talk about 10 years ago, people didn't really think of traveling as an escape. Vacations were more of a luxury. But nowadays, going to a different city or maybe even a different country is how people, uh, feel rejuvenated. That is the way people take breaks. So I think the image around traveling or moving from one place to another has changed a lot. And so has the way people approach it. Earlier, there were not so many people who would travel from one place to another, but now anywhere we go, we could just see filled cafes or, beautiful monuments filled with humans. So I think people have begun traveling more, and it has had a different image than what it had a decade ago.
How does travel change people?
When you go somewhere new, you meet different people with different cultures. For example, if we talk about India, if we talk about Steve Jobs, he came to India because he wanted to find enlightenment. And he thought that India is the one place where he can be in touch with his spirituality. He stayed here for 3 months, and then he actually felt as if he has become more close to his higher self. And that kind of impact only happens when you really move out of an environment and you enter a different space where you could, explore different people's stories and understand different traditions. I think it makes you more open minded and it helps you achieve your own personal goals better.
Great. That brings us to the end of the test, Navya. Okay, so let's talk about feedback. So one thing I noticed that you have a tendency to use the word honestly and really quite often, but overall your points were made very clearly. Your ideas were well organized. Every question had more than one information or more than one piece of detail added to it. So when you gave me information, say you said, yes, I agree with this, or I think this way, you were able to give me more than one reason for it. You included mini stories, which is a great way to add detail. You also added specific examples, like for instance, the very last question, you talked about Steve Jobs coming to India and finding himself, which was a great example to include, which was extremely relevant. So you do have a tendency to occasionally make prepositional errors. For example, you would say in instead of into. I think you said, my nation went in a nationwide lockdown, where it should have been, my nation went into a nationwide lockdown. So similarly, you said in a state of lockdown when you should have said into a state of lockdown. So those are some examples of how you made some prepositional errors, but throughout your tenses were immaculate, good use of vocabulary. You were able to use words that were uncommon, and you were able to use it quite naturally. For example, you used the word advent, you used the word proclivity. These add to your lexical resource. So overall, I think you did extremely well, and your score would definitely be on an 8 or 8.5 band level.
Thank you so much for this feedback. And this was very constructive. Thank you.